I am going to open with a thing that gets me into trouble at conferences. Yeah, I do not run a training needs analysis. And in fact, I haven't run one in 15 years, since 2011. And that story is coming up. And hand on heart, it is one of the most strategic decisions I have made in my career to date. Now wait, before you close this video down, I know how that sounds. The training needs analysis is what we've all been taught. It's the rigor. It's the thing that makes us feel like professionals and not just content factories. So I'm going to tell you why I walked away from it and, more importantly, what I do instead. Because what I do instead is the reason why I walk into rooms and walk out with big budgets, while unfortunately other learning and development teams down the hall are fighting for their headcount. And if we haven't met yet, I am Candice Mitchell. I am the CEO of the Talent Collective, the creator of the Talent Development Academy, and with nearly 20 years in the people function, having stood up 7 learning and development functions from scratch and still doing this in my day-to-day, my hands are dirty with you. My consulting clients double or quadruple with me sitting in the room with them. So this stuff I take you through is not theory from 10, 20, sometimes 75 years ago. This is my Tuesday. Okay, first, let me be fair to the training needs analysis, because I don't knock anything that I don't deeply understand. A training needs analysis is how learning and development people figure out the gap between what people can do and what their work or job requires them to do, or what the organization needs them to do, or their role in general, where the role is going. So on paper, it's solid. Genuinely, I'm not here to tell you that the people who came up with this are fools. But here is the one thing it cannot do. It cannot tell you if training was never the answer in the first place. Because by the time you're running it, someone has already decided that training is the answer. And so you're not deciding if it is the answer, you're just deciding which flavor. And that one flaw, that is the entire ball game. Why we get treated like order takers. Watch this play out in real time, because you have lived it and so have I. A leader walks up to you and asks you, can you train my people on giving feedback? Can you take my managers through having difficult conversations? And you do the responsible thing. You run the analysis. You speak to some managers, asking them, do you need training on giving feedback? Would training on difficult conversations help you? You confirm the gap, you build the thing, you deliver the thing, you even measure the thing, and every step of that is competent. But every single step of that accepts the frame you were handed. The request already decided that training was the answer. So 6 months later, the managers are still avoiding those difficult conversations. Turns out the real reason was because the performance system punishes honesty like that, or a boss models avoidance every single day. So the leader looks at it and says, yeah, training really doesn't work, does it? And that verdict lands on you. This is how our function becomes a cost center. And this is how we stay stuck as order takers. And it's not because you are bad at your job. It is because we keep delivering things that do not move the needle. It's because we keep analyzing the request and not analyzing the business need. And I got so tired of operating downstream from where the decisions were being made. So I built a different way to do this work. And it started with a group of truck drivers. This was back in 2011. I was brought in to support a group of truck drivers. There were about 1,000 of them. And these guys dealt with customers all day long. So me, I assume they need customer service training because you know the type, rough around the edges, maybe their people skills need a little polishing. That was my assumption. And I held on to that assumption until the moment I went and spent time with them. So I got up, left the house at 1 a.m., drove to a depot to be there by 4 a.m. so that I can see their work. I watched them load their trucks. I watched them interact with their crew. I met some of them. I actually followed them along their routes and watched them interact with their customers. So I got to see this all day long up close. And in fact, I did this for about a month to 6 weeks to really get a good sense of the different depots, the different teams, the different environments. And then I realized something pretty early on that stopped me cold. This is not a customer service issue. Their customer service was excellent, like genuinely some of the best I have ever seen. Most of them knew all their customers by name. They would greet them. They would ask how their day's going, how the business is going. And I remember thinking to myself, why are these guys so good at this? And then it clicked. It was their business. They were owner drivers. They owned the truck. It was their business. And they were so damn proud of it. Nobody on this earth needed to teach these people how to do customer service. Their customers were their livelihoods, and they knew it. So, what did they actually need? Something completely different. They needed to know how to run their small business, how to recruit people, how to manage their crew, how to manage their product losses, how to pay their taxes. They needed business acumen, not a customer service course. And here's a part that actually keeps me up a little at night. If I had stayed at my desk, if I had built what was requested, I would have built the most gorgeous, stunning, beautiful customer service training course known to mankind. And it would have been completely, totally, utterly wrong. So the question was never, how do I build a better analysis? The question is, what do you do instead? And that's what I want to give you for the rest of this episode. Move one is to start from outside the building. Most teams start inside, right? Start with, what content do we need to build here? And that is the mistake. They start working from within, but I work from the outside in, so that by the time I come to people with a capability plan, I have earned the right to say it. And there are 5 layers to this. I'm going to go through them very briefly. The first layer is the macro trends. What is happening outside in the world that is impacting this company? How is AI impacting this company? How is geopolitical environment impacting this company? Even where is this work going to physically happen in the next 12 to 18 months? And layer 2 is the people. You've got to know what is important to people in general, right? People are wanting flexibility, they're wanting development. And then you look at the internal people. For example, what are the high performers doing that no one else is doing or that no one's really written down? Layer 3 is the industry. And not like the industry in general, but your industry in particular. So again, if you're looking at the macro trends, let's take AI because it's the, most talked about topic on the planet. You got to look at how is AI impacting your industry, because how AI is impacting fintech versus how AI is impacting construction, two completely different things. And you have got to make those connections. And then layer 4 is the business goals. So what is your CEO working on? And I say you've got to know the business like you run the place, because then you're going to be having these conversations with so much more confidence and knowledge behind your recommendations. And then layer 5, and this is last, absolutely last, is the capability. Based on all the things you know up to this point, what is your recommendation capability plan to close these gaps? If you run these 5 layers in the order that I took you through, that original training request, it almost never survives contact with reality. And that is the entire point. Move 2 is to get on the ground. You already heard what happened when I showed up at 4 a.m. at the depot, and you've got to do the same in your own version, of course. Pick the roles that matter most. And please hear me when I say this. This is not the person who shouts the loudest about training. We know who that person is. You've got to go where the work actually happens. And then stay for a full cycle and make sure you're seeing different environments. So we had 42 depots, and over about 6 weeks, I went to 19 of them. So almost half. I was like aiming for half. But at that point, I had seen enough to pick out the themes. Yes, I understood there were nuances in different environments, but I could confidently speak to like the top 3 things that were needed. And here's a little like magic move I do, which is so simple, honestly, but I don't know how many of you do this. Like, it came to me quite late in my career, but go and sit in on team meetings where the leader of these people run the meeting, right? And just sit in the background, maybe introduce yourself. Don't if you don't have to, honestly, because just watch how the interaction happens, how the leader speaks to the people. Do the other people on the team get to speak? Because even that can show you like this underlying kind of trust issue, or underlying, like if the manager interrupts everyone, that it's like this disrespect that's happening in the team. And honestly, listening in on team meetings is a huge win and so underleveraged. So that's my little magic move suggestion. Go and invite yourself to that next team meeting. Now, I built a template for the on-the-job observation guide for you. It covers 6 areas to watch with the exact prompts all laid out, so you can go and print it and use it for your own environment. I am not going to read a template out loud because that might be the worst YouTube video on the planet. And I like you way too much for that. So the field guide, the one you can print and write on and take with you, is in my Capability Edge Substack. The link is in the description, so you can go and grab it and use it. Moving on to move 3, building the bridge. I'm going to take you through this 1-page artifact that I put together. And again, I'm not going to take you through line by line by line, most boring video ever, but I am going to take you through like the shape of it. So it starts with the business results they want in their language, and always tied to numbers. Then it's what I actually saw on the ground. 2 to 5 things that are very specific that I watched happen, and again, talking to the themes of all the things that you have seen. Next is the capability that will close that gap, including what it moves and how we will know. And then one that almost nobody includes is what is not a course, a tool, a process, a system, a manager. If those things don't get fixed alongside this course, the whole thing's going to fall flat. So let me fill it in with the truck driver so I make it real for you. The result the business wanted was to keep more of these owner drivers, so retention, and reduce product losses because that money came out of their own pockets, but they wanted the business to help them because they were losing stock and not really understanding what was happening and how to even deal with it when it did happen. So what I saw on the ground was that they run this truck like it was their business because it is their business, and they are so proud of it. The gap was in recruiting the right people. They would often just recruit their friends or their family, which wasn't always a good business decision. They needed help with paying their taxes, and they needed help with managing their crew, specifically when it came to managing product losses. What they did not need was customer service training, and I added that in the brief. The capability we were going to build: run a small business well. What it moved was retention went up, product losses went down. And I could prove that because I had the before numbers. So critical. You have to get the before numbers before you even start anything. This plan got funded and I got a big budget for it. If I had pitched run-of-the-mill customer service training, never in a million years. Okay, now I want to go through just briefly the stuff that makes it all stick, right? I told you I was going to give you value in this video and I meant it. First, we need to measure in business measures. You will never be business critical with completion rates. So change the scoreboard. You can measure completion, attendance, and those smiley sheets that tell you whether they enjoyed their day. But you must also, so it's an and, you must also measure the business metrics that count. Retention, productivity, stock losses, efficiency, all of that kind of stuff. So here's an example. So from leadership training attendance, you can measure promotions before and after the training. Or you can measure retention in the first 90 days in teams of managers who have been through the training versus managers who have not yet been through the training. This leads to a completely different conversation with your CFO. So one of these numbers gets you politely nodded out the door, while the other one gets you invited back. And remember to pick this number before you build anything. And if you cannot name that number before you build, you are not ready to build yet. Second, you have to handle the request in the room. When a request lands on your desk, you cannot simply say no. And believe me, because I did that and it did not end well for me. So when I tell you to not do that, please don't do that. Do this instead. Ask these three things. First, what business problem are we actually solving here? Second, what does success look like past people attending the course? And third, maybe ask this in your own head for a little bit, but is training even the right fix? And if the leader can't answer, that is actually not a dead end. That is the opening, and that is so exciting. You can say, give me a week on the ground and I will scope what the business actually needs here. Because really, you want to solve the actual problem and not just the symptom. And then, there you go. Go have your field day. And please, for the love of all that is learning and development, stop waiting to be invited. In your leadership meetings, start asking what the biggest challenges are. Ask, where are they seeing performance gaps? And what is stopping people from executing? Because if you, in learning and development, are not in those conversations, that means you're not in the conversations where work gets defined. And no amount of gorgeous designs is going to fix that, because we know learning and development is absolutely not a service desk. So pushing back, it's not difficult. It is the job. So where do you start on Monday? Because look, you don't have to blow up everything you've been doing and start all over again. Take the very next request that lands on your desk, and instead of building it straight away, just stop until you can answer the one question that matters most. What business result is this meant to produce? And if no one can answer that, congratulations! You have not found a training need. You have found a real problem. And you've just found your reason to get on the ground. And I want to leave you with this because it is something I care about so deeply. When budgets get tight, and look, they always do, the first function on the chopping block is the function that cannot show what it changed. A stack of completed courses make you a nice to have. And that is something that only survives in the good years. But a capability plan that moved a real business number, that makes you infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't get cut. This was really the seed that got me to write my book, Choose You. It is for people who refuse to disappear. And the people I wrote it for are often the very ones watching this video. Talented, committed, and often a little bit terrified that they are not in the rooms where these decisions are being made. And look, you do not stop being invisible by producing more. Believe me, I have tried. You stop being invisible by being the person who shows up at the depot at 4 a.m. and knows something that no one else in the building knows because you were there and you saw it. And funny enough, that is a skill and it is teachable. Nobody is going to hand you the strategic chair. So pull up your own damn chair. So here's what to do next. Everything we just spoke about, the 5 layers written out, the field guide you can print and take with you, the capability guide you can steal line by line, and the measurement swaps, that's all waiting for you in this week's Capability Edge on Substack. The written version goes much deeper than I can with a microphone. And then the templates are right there. Link is in the description, so go get it. And if you want the full method, the complete conversation guides, the plan templates, the frameworks, and so much more, all of that lives inside the Talent Development Academy. It's council backed. It is triple accredited by ATD, SHRM, and HRCI. And that is where I teach this properly. It is for those who are done running analysis on requests that were never the real problem and ready to walk into a room with a plan the business will actually fund. That is the episode this week. I will see you next time.